So our next speaker is Sharon Cameron, and she's the Environmental Awareness Officer with Mayo County Council for over 16 years. In this role, Sharon has worked closely with communities, schools and businesses throughout Mayo in leading campaigns to promote greater care for our environment, in particular in areas of waste and litter management. So I'd like to welcome Sharon up to stage. I believe she's the go-to woman, and she's lots of information, and she also has, I've heard in the QT, the purse strings as well.
Dermot. I hope you're all feeling a little bit more revived after the coffee. Apologies in advance on behalf of the environment. We didn't intend having any disposable items today, particularly disposable coffee cups, but the crash you heard earlier on was the table of death. So, apologies. Anyway, I had my own with me, as I always do. I want to just echo the words of the previous speaker, my colleague Peter Gill. For me to be here today and to be invited to speak in a room of people who care so much is a very special moment for me. I mean, you work in the Environment Department of a local authority. You don't always come across people that have such care and respect and pride of place as you do. So it gives me the opportunity publicly to thank our own groups here in Mayo, but all the groups that have travelled throughout the country today. And I know some of the other awareness officers have also travelled here today as well, so I welcome them. It's nice to have their support also. So today's presentation, I want to speak to you about the role of the Environment Awareness Officer, which the adjudicators have mentioned earlier on, and to give you some examples of, I suppose, projects that we have done with tidy towns groups here locally in Mayo. And most of my presentation is based on photographs, and you will see in them photographs there's me alone on my own, and everybody else in them is a volunteer, a member of a tidy towns or a community group that I work with. So I'm here to tell you about how I can support you, but also without our tidy towns here in Mayo, there would be no role for me because I couldn't do it. I wasn't in the job a week when I was invited up to Belmullet by Belmullet Tidy Towns by 4 of the ladies there who are still involved today, and I knew nothing about the sense of pride and community, and but after that visit I really did learn and have continued to learn since. The projects I will talk about are mainly based on waste management and litter, and particularly in waste prevention, and Lorraine will speak more about that in the afternoon because it is an important category of the application now. We'll also mention the SWIFTs. The SWIFTs are definitely going to get a good mention today, the SWIFTs project here in Mayo, and I will end with a few slides on behalf of my colleague McCain in the Water and Communities Office, who also has a stand here today. So to give you a little bit of context about the role of the Awareness Officer, most of us were appointed back in the early 2000s, late 90s. I came into the council in 2000, and it was enactment of the waste management plan. So up until then, there was no legislation regarding waste and how we controlled waste in this country. And from then, we had policies and we had plans, right up to the current version of these plans. And in this country, our waste is governed by waste regions, and here we're part of the Connacht-Ulster region, and there is an awareness officer in each local authority, and I know that the slide position is to be filled soon as well, which is great. So our work, while we do a lot of work also on waste and energy, water, but it always does come back to that waste because that is the main core of our work. But it has moved very much from recycling to waste prevention, and a lot of the projects today will be about waste prevention. So we work with schools and youth groups and Feroga groups, with yourself, Tidy Towns, community groups and our sports groups, but also business and industry, and also at the household level. And it has been said already, but do keep in contact with us, because sometimes we may be aware of a project going on in a town that maybe you may not be aware of, but that would tie very, very well in with you in your application and in your work. Because it's about joining all the people, and as Peter said, it's you're not alone. There's lots of other agencies and that there as well. So it is a matter of keeping in contact with us. But all of them make up community, which is my presentation today, working with communities. I want to start off to talk a little bit about greening of festivals, and there's a national campaign and a national website, greenyourfestival.ie. And because it's the Westport 250 celebrations, my colleague Anne Moore here in the Westport office came to me a couple of months back, and she said, can we meet and have a chat about greening of festivals, because we're going to have lots of events and lots of festivals here in Westport over the course of the year. And for me, that's absolutely great to hear that, that's going to be now incorporated into festivals. And when I was growing up, the big festival in our community was the annual sports day in Irwin's Field, adjacent to Irwin's pub. And we would spend weeks practicing our three-legged races and our egg and spoon races and all of that, and that was it. There was nothing else happening. But video footage emerged in the last few years of that event, or one of the years of that event, which is quite rare to have video footage from when I was a child. And I was watching myself running through the fields, and the rushes would be all cut back and the cow paths cleared away, and this was the big event. My dad would be on traffic duty, parking cars for the day. But what stood out straight away to me is that we were running through a field of litter. And I was going, that looks so bad. And like the litter was chalk ices, tubs and Tato, because that's all that was there and sold. And I think from that, we moved from that, because there was no education. There was absolutely no education when I was in school about litter. There was no green schools. And we moved from that to a situation where we now had litter control at festivals. So you put out the half barrels, you put out the bins, and that's the standard. I suppose when you think of greening the festival, you put out the litter bin. But we wanted to take it a step further and to try and to introduce some segregation. And I know some of you here today will be from small groups and small communities, and you're saying, how will we ever get to the level of the Westports? What I will say to you, and something my own husband said last night, who is a native of Westport. I got him out of Westport, but he's a native of Westport. And he said, when he grew up here, like Westport, I think we're saying about 40 years of Westport tidy towns, they were not at the level they're at today. It took, it's baby steps over the years. So with all the projects I mentioned today, if you're doing nothing, you start litter control. If you're doing litter control, well, then maybe we're going to try and do a little bit of waste segregation at the festival. And then if you're already doing all this, then you maybe look at your green marketing, smarter travel, all of that as well, when you're getting people to festivals in your town. So in our complete and utter madness in Westport, I had this idea that we would green the Westport Festival of Music and Food a few years back, which is an event that takes place over a weekend with 10,000 plus people. And Westport Tidy Towns came on board with me. Two wonderful teachers from the Sacred Heart Secondary School here in the town came on board with me. And then Kilmaine Tidy Towns, they said they'd help out, and lots of other Tidy Towns groups came in. And we recruited over 60 volunteers to man the festival for the weekend. And it was a huge undertaking, but also a huge success, because we had a very high visibility presence on the day, and people really did remark the difference it made. So what we did is we introduced segregated bins, because so much of the waste at festivals is recyclable, your plastic beer cups, your plastic bottles. We also attempted to segregate out food waste. Now, there didn't tend to be a huge amount of food waste at the festivals, because if you spend €7 on a burger, you tend to eat it. But what happened, the difficulty is because food waste was going out for composting, we found it a challenge, because people are enjoying themselves. They don't want to have to scrape the last bit of noodles out of the box into the bag. And so we ended up doing that for 35 hours over the 2 days. But what we did try to do, but we weren't successful on that occasion with the promoters, is we wanted to have compostable packaging, so that if I'm drinking out of a coffee cup and I'm finished with it, that packaging is actually compostable, and I can throw that in the bin that says food waste, because it'll break down with the food. So we tried, it didn't work so well for us, but certainly there's compostable packaging available, and we did contact the vendors, but you really need to be working on this quite in advance, that everyone who's selling something at your event will have their packaging sourced beforehand. But on a waste prevention measure, something like a receptacle like we had for drinking water, to stop this constant use of plastic bottles all of the time, that people could just go up and refill their container with water. That's a very, very simple measure at any festival. But also to incorporate some type of green workshop. And what I always think is that parents, including myself, you will hand over €2 and €3 for a child to go on a bouncy castle for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it is, and they will pay you to do so when you hand it over. But if you incorporate a little green workshop, so we done this with the Westport Festival, and we got a community artist to come in and make puppets from waste material, and it was really nice because it was a quiet area. The kids went in, they got out of all the hustle and bustle of the day, and they really enjoyed it. Now, we were able to fund this event, there was no problem. If it's something that you were lacking funding of, as a parent, I would gladly give €1 or €2 for the children to get involved in something like this. We had this guy, Magical Marvin, done many events for us over the years also. But also incorporating even an event. This is a big music school over in Kilmavee that takes place every summer, a traditional music school where children go to for the week. And we've done a furniture upcycling workshop at it. The community, we offered it to communities and they took it up. So sometimes you can incorporate something into an event, an environment type event, without it taking a huge amount of organisation, just tie in with something else that's happening. Other types of workshops, there's a huge focus on the moment on waste prevention, and that's a step before you recycle something. You try and stop something becoming waste. And the Eco Congregation group here in Westport came to me before Christmas and said, Sharon, what money have you got? And I said, well, if you can do anything on waste prevention, I said I would throw a few bob towards it. And they done, it's a programme we run with schools every year. It's a Christmas decoration from recycled material, but they done one here locally for the community and for the adults in the community. And it was coming up to Christmas, so we had the mulled wine and the mince pies, and they brought in again, a local artist came in and showed us how, because I'm just not awfully inclined that way, so I needed someone to show me how I can make Christmas cards out of waste material and decorations and all of that. And it was the loveliest evening, and people really, really enjoyed it. We also run events with businesses all of the time. So we've worked with several of the chambers of commerce throughout the county on business events and greening business. So it might be something the Tidy Towns might be directly involved in, but it's something that's happening in your town. So this picture was of one in Belmullet, a green business event there. An event that worked really well for us, quite a recent one, is part of National Reuse Month last October, and it was called This Is Not a Wood Pallet Workshop, and we didn't talk at all about wood pallets in it, but again it was bringing an expert in to show people in the community how they can get more life out of old items in their homes, and a little bit of kind of upcycling of furniture and just freshening things up, and so you extend their life. The man who gave it actually is a former member of the Neil Tidy Towns, and is also a retired teacher, but he was so knowledgeable and such an expert. And we had to put a sign outside saying fully booked. The room took 85 people and it was full. So huge interest in this type of thing. And that's something that can be run over a winter evening, that doesn't have to be right in the middle of the summer when you're very busy with all your kind of outdoor activities. Other ones, the Connacht Spring Show last year, we took a stand at it with, again, Peter and Eve from the Tidy Towns in Ballinrobe. They came and joined me for the whole day. And these can be very long events for me as awareness officer on my own, so it's always great to have the support. On this particular occasion, the day was absolutely beautiful, and people had far more interest being outside looking at the sheep than they did visiting our stock food waste kitchen, but it could have been completely different if it had rained. And but it was a great opportunity, and it was great for me to have the support. Again, Michael, it's Swinford Tidy Towns. I know Crossmine was mentioned earlier on, but Swinford Tidy Towns in Dublin Mutmits, they've done the agricultural show there. They stayed with me right down to taking the marquee down that evening, and they can put that in as an activity under their Tidy Towns Sustainable Waste and Resource Management category. Again, another Eco Congregation group doing a chain for chain stand at the Ballina Heritage Fair last year. Little events like that, which can be really nice events. I worked with Mulrani last year on greener cleaning, and in your pack today there's a greener cleaning and a greener gardening guide. And we did a workshop and we made up a few cleaning products out of bread soda and washing soda and vinegar and stuff like that. So that again is a lovely idea, not a difficult one to do. And I have done that with preschool children, secondary school children, community groups, and it's a nice little workshop, which actually you don't need me to do at all, because it's very simple for anyone to put these things together and run one of these events. And the garden phase from Crossmolina, again, I go down every year, and they have everything set up, so I can talk about composting, I can have a stand about water conservation, whatever it is. And the awareness officers are there as much as they can to support you on that. Composting workshops of an evening, and we ran lots of composting events because composting is a means of cutting down on waste. So if you have a composting event, it does tie in well with that category again. But a very good point was made earlier on is to try maybe to have a little follow-up survey to see how many people your EAO has managed to convert to composting after the workshop, and that might just gain you that extra mark that are so hard to come by. DIY workshops or DIY groups locally. If you are getting people to grow their own food, they're cutting down on waste. It fits very, very well into your sustainable waste and resource management category. Going into workplace events, I would go into all our big employers here in the county and do information stands. It only takes 2 hours over the lunch break and that's it done. But it's great when I have the support of the tidy towns to come in with me as well, and then it becomes your event as much as my event. Food waste is also a big area of focus at the moment, and you'll have heard a lot in the news over the last few weeks about food waste and cutting down on food waste. So we've done a project up in Belmullet, and it was called Shan's Plan, and we brought an expert in who showed the mums and dads how to plan their meals and get organised and do their shopping right and do their storage right so they cut down on food waste. So that was also a very, very good one. And I know all these are so far removed from picking litter, but they're also an equal and important part of your category. We ran fashion focus workshops in several schools last year with the organisation called Eco UNESCO, and they came in and they taught children about the value of our clothes and where our clothes come from and where they're made and all of that. So again, if that workshop took place in Westport, then it's good that Westport Tidy Towns know about that because it's an event that's happened here in the town. The one I have with me today, and I also have the Mayo colours of it. This is a new campaign. We love our Mayo colours, and it's called Use Your Mug for Mayo. So we're launching this next week, and this is a campaign we've partnered with Castlebar Tidy Towns on. And it's, unfortunately, we have developed a huge coffee culture in this country, and it's like an extension of our arm now, our latte or our cappuccino or whatever, and drinking coffee on the go, which we really didn't have 10 years ago. And with that comes a huge amount of disposable cups. And them disposable cups, you know from your litter picks, an awful lot of them end up on the side of the road. And they're not normally recyclable because they're either contaminated or they have a laminate coating on them, so they're not very easily recycled. So we're trying to get people to have these coffee cups and go into local petrol stations and don't be afraid to ask to use them. And so we partnered with Castlebar Tidy Towns, and we've put them into all the petrol stations around Castlebar and some of the coffee shops, and we're at a subsidised rate, and the money that's generated will go back to the Tidy Towns group as well. So this one, it's already been done in Leitrim with the Tidy Towns there, and probably in some of your own localities as well. I know a lot of my colleagues are working on similar campaigns, but it's to just get, something, you know how hard it is to tell someone to pick up a bit of litter when they've dropped it, and once you've done it a few times, it becomes easier. So I was on the train going to Dublin, and on the train, obviously, you're always offered a disposable cup. And I said, oh, can I use my own cup? And she said, no problem. But the girl actually was so confused by my request that she gave my money back to me. She thought I was looking for something free. So I said, thanks very much. So maybe try that one out if any of your travelling by train. Don't say I said it. One I just took from my colleagues in Cong Tidy Towns is called Pimp Your Planter. Dare I say, very sexy looking planters in Cong. And I've seen some of these recently in school up there when I was up doing the Green School Assessment. Lovely, lovely idea of using, I suppose it's joining biodiversity with the other categories of cutting down on waste in the one project. It ticks two boxes there. Lovely, clever one, and you'll see lots of examples of that in your own community. I said we love our county colours. Bling your thing. If you can get people into charity shops, they're cutting down on waste. Sometimes it's a little bit of a barrier, people just to get across the door at a charity shop. When you go in, they're absolutely wonderful. I love going to charity shops. I bought several pieces of clothing in charity shops and bags and shoes. And we wanted to try and get people in, so we great support with our local radio station in Mayo called Midwest Radio. So we ran a whole campaign with them for a whole month, and it was Bring Your Thing, and we challenged people to go into their local charity shop and get an item of clothing, a bag, a pair of shoes, and do something with it to give it new life. This was one of the runners-up, and I think we actually must try and get this quote out for our Mayo Day celebrations that are coming up in May, and it's this was made from a very traditional Mother of the Bride's kind of suit that was a bit dated, and they transformed it into this. But this was our winning one, which I really liked, and it was a dog basket for Max. And we're very fortunate because we have a resource centre in Castlebar called the Creative Resource Centre, and they take waste materials from all the local industries, including Allergan here in Westport, and they have an Aladdin's Cave over in Castlebar, and groups from all over the country come to them, and you can take some of these materials, whatever it could be cut off of fabric, cloth, cardboard, plastic, whatever it is, and it can be used for arts and craft purposes in your community. So this lady put that resource centre to good use and come up with this beautiful design. The last few slides on the campaigns that I am running, or that are being ran, this one is being ran by Castlebar Tidy Towns, and again, these are just a few examples because I didn't have the time today to highlight everything, and it's only to give you ideas, or just to get you thinking, or maybe get you to discuss over lunch and say, oh, you know what we're doing in our town. As Dermot said, it's the only day that we're going to share anything. After today, but anyhow, Second-Hand Saturday, on that thing of getting people into charity shops. This is a social media campaign. That's all it really is. It's a few photos up on Facebook, but it has had a huge impact and a huge amount of hits and views and likes for the Tidy Towns, and it doesn't take a huge amount of work. This year they've started, they were running it last year, but they've started bringing the volunteers from the shops into the photos as well, because you know, if you put a picture of a person up on Facebook, it tends to really draw people in. And a couple of ones that we do very simply at work, over the Christmas, we get lots of biscuits and sweets, and we eat lots of biscuits and sweets, and then we have to have a walk on Wednesday the whole way through from about January to August to work it all off, and have to do mad laps around the lake in Castlebar at lunchtime. But this gentleman called Oris, he's an artist with a great sense of the environment, so he collected the biscuit tins and he makes guitars out of them, you know. And if you notice this year, there was less of the metal biscuit tins coming through, a lot more plastic this year, so I think it was very timely that we done this. And the simplest one in the world that I put up at work is bring a book, buy a book. Put a few baskets of books out. At any workplace you could do this. Put 2 charity buckets for local charities, donate a minimum of €2, and if you want to take a book. And we raised, in a few months last year, we had 800 euros raised for a charity. So that one is very simple. You see, I know some of you have, we have them here also, this county, the wee libraries out along walkways and stuff like that. So the same idea. In them cases, you're just giving a book and taking a book. With this one, we have a charity link to it as well. Stop Food Waste Challenge. We're about to get one of these up and running in the next few months with Belcarra Tidy Towns, the local small tidy towns here. And Stop Food Waste Challenge we ran a few years ago in Ballina, and we would do lots of events and talks where we would go out for a morning or an evening and we would talk about food waste and ways to cut down on it. But we found to really get people to change, we need to work with them for a little bit longer. And we worked with this group of 12 families in Ballina for 4 evenings over 6 weeks. We just wanted 1 hour for 4 evenings over 6 weeks, and we just really went into food waste and cooking and storing and shopping and all of that, and it was a huge success. And I have been advised yesterday that Minister Nocton is very, very much in favour of the Stop Food Waste challenges, and there's a campaign and a website, stopfoodwaste.ie, so if you go onto that and just go to the Stop Food Waste challenge part, if you're interested in having one of these, let them know. It may not be your Environment Awareness Officer that will facilitate it, it may be somebody else, but it looks like there will be a little bit of funding towards Stop Food Waste challenges in the community at the moment. A nice project even to run over the winter evenings. I won't speak too much about litter campaigns because there is as many litter campaigns as there is types of litter. You know, your chewing gum, your cigarette butts, all of that. And we pick a type of litter and we run campaigns and then we move on to the next one. I did want to mention a very big event that was two ladies from Kilmaine Tidy Towns came to me a number of years back, and they said they want to clean up the approach roads to Knock Airport, and then Westport Road in and many other groups, and a huge voluntary effort. We cleaned up a 10-mile radius of several approach roads to Knock Airport of litter, and it's pure litter picking, and it's pure, you know, it's that element of litter control where you actually go out and pick it. But then you have the awareness campaigns. We've done this last year with a few of the tidy towns, including Bannon, which is roadside, big kind of in-your-face roadside litter campaigns. You know, enjoying your takeaway, bring it home, messages, temporary campaigns, permanent signage we don't want out there all the time, but because it becomes litter itself. But temporary signage campaigns. Clean Up Mayo Day. There's a phrase which has been coined here called the Good Friday Clean-Up. We also tie that in now with Clean Up Mayo Day, which tends to be on Good Friday, to get people out and get people cleaning. And we've partnered with a local organisation here also, Leave No Trace, who are a national organisation, and as well as being based here in Westport. And they have, we feel that if we can teach young people to appreciate their environment, you know, it's that idea of them being involved in planting the tree or whatever it is. If we can get them to appreciate their environment and appreciate the biodiversity and their nature and their wildlife, then they are more likely to take care of it and less likely to damage it through vandalism, through litter or whatever. So at the moment we're partnering with Ballyhaunis. We have a whole group of youngsters out there from the school, nearly 30 youngsters out every week on kind of wood crafts and nature skills and all of this. Another approach, so it's not picking litter, it's education and awareness with regard to litter. Dog fouling, it takes up far more of my time and energy than I can give to it, really. We try lots of different things. We have Coco, our mascot. He was in some of the parades last week, giving out poop scoop bags. We've had the audio messages, there's the stencils, there's radio campaigns. We just have to keep chipping away at it. It's a national problem. You all have it in your communities. If any of you have found a good thing that works, the Green Dog Walker seems to be working well. So I think, you know, if you've come up with a good idea on this one that works, then I think we all need to get on board with that. So that is the projects that I've been directly involved with, and some of the projects that have just ran independently of us here in Mayo. I want to just give a few, the last few slides with regards to two other things that are happening here today. So my colleague McCain is in the Water and Communities Office, and the Water and Community Office is a new, just really set up since last year, new organisation, and they operate as a shared service on behalf of all the local authorities. And their objective is to coordinate all the water quality work done by local authority. But the bit where they can link with you very much so is to engage local communities and promote public participation in the management of our water environment. And I suppose it's really about this reconnection with our water. If I go into schools, you know, I'll always say, what's your local river, your local lake? Where does your water come from? Because again, if we can connect people with their water sources, I think it's something that they will appreciate. And it can be anywhere from source to sea, the whole water catchment. So if you have something in your community that you need support or help with, there is a number of community water officers throughout the country now, and if you go to the waterandcommunities.ie website, you can get your contact person for your area. Mick is here today and has a stand, so he can chat to you about the work he's doing in this region and linking with you on projects. To bring us back to where we are, this has been the most successful nest box project in the country, and the unique one, because in the Town Hall Theatre, when it was being built, they built in the boxes into the walls. Rather than having them sort of sitting outside the wall, they actually built them into the wall. And I think 4 or 5 of them nest boxes were taken up residents in the second year, which is really unusual. And we played the swift call to encourage the birds in, but this has been hugely successful. So have a look at that one today as well. There is a little bit of urgency about this because they're due back in May. In some areas they're even there a little bit earlier, so it is one to, as a biodiversity project, it's a lovely one for your communities. That brings me to the end of my presentation. I thank you again for your attention and for the opportunity to speak here today. We do have a Facebook page from the Environment Office in Mayo County Council called Greening Mayo, and we try and keep it updated with the events and that are happening. Again, for all of you, social media, it is a lot of the way that it is gone, so you know, it is a good way of spreading the word and getting messages out there as well. Thank you very much and keep up the good work.